There's something shifting around Golden State right now, and it's not the kind of noise you can ignore if you've been watching this team for years. The conversation has quietly moved away from big dreams and into something a lot more serious. Inside the league, this is no longer about chasing a superstar. It's about facing what the roster actually is. Because that Giannis scenario people kept throwing around, that door is basically closed. Not because the Warriors wouldn't want him, but because the numbers don't allow it. And when you really break it down, it becomes obvious why nobody inside front offices is treating that idea as realistic anymore. Steph is already taking up a massive portion of the payroll. Stack that with the other contracts on the books, and you're not just tight on space, you're locked in. And under the current rules, once you cross certain financial lines, it's not just about paying more. You lose flexibility, you lose tools, and suddenly building around your core becomes way harder than people think. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Even if Milwaukee picked up the phone, what exactly are the Warriors offering back? Because a team heading into a reset isn't looking for aging contracts. They're looking for youth, picks, and long-term control. That's where Golden State hits a wall. Now put yourself in that front office chair for a second. You're looking at Curry still playing at an elite level, but the roster around him isn't matching that urgency. And you realize there's no miracle move coming this summer. Right? Never count out the Warriors. If you know this team always finds a way to compete. That's where the real internal debate starts. There are two directions being seriously considered, and neither one is comfortable. One path is about accepting the situation and trying to maximize what's left. That means going after veteran minimum players who can actually fit next to Steph. Shooters, defenders, high IQ guys who don't need the ball but understand how to play winning basketball. It's not flashy, but it gives you a chance to stay competitive. If you're a real Warriors fan and want to stay updated on everything happening with this team, subscribe now because things could get interesting very soon. The other path is much tougher. Because when you start talking about real financial relief, one name naturally comes up in those conversations: Draymond Green. Not just because of performance, but because of what his contract represents in this current structure. And this is where things get complicated. You're not just talking about moving a player. You're talking about moving a piece of the identity, leadership, culture, everything this dynasty was built on, weighed against the need to reset and create a future. Comment, the dynasty is not over, if you think the Warriors still have more to show. What's interesting is that publicly, there's still this effort to keep the big move narrative alive, like something major could still happen out of nowhere. But internally, the tone is very different, much more calculated, much more realistic. And the more you listen to people around the league, the clearer it becomes that this is one of those defining moments. Not just for next season, but for the entire final phase of the Curry era. Because every decision from here shapes how this story ends. And there are things happening around the league right now, especially in the East, that could end up impacting Golden State in ways nobody is really connecting yet. Right, with Steph until the end. If you believe that as long as Curry is on the court, anything is possible. Stay locked in, because the next development tied to this situation might completely change how we're looking at the Warriors heading into the offseason. And what's starting to surface behind the scenes is the kind of tension you only see when a franchise realizes time is no longer on its side. This isn't about panic. It's about pressure building quietly. The front office knows Steph is still delivering at a level most players can't touch, but the margin for error around him has disappeared. There's also growing concern about how fragile the current structure feels. Injuries, aging legs, inconsistent rotations. It's not one issue, it's the accumulation. And when that stacks on top of a payroll that limits flexibility, every small mistake starts to look bigger than it actually is. League insiders have been pointing to something else too. The Warriors are no longer operating from a position of leverage. For years, they dictated terms. Now, they're reacting, and that shift changes how other teams deal with them. Offers get tighter, expectations get higher, and patience from ownership gets thinner. So internally, every move is being evaluated with a different lens. It's no longer, does this make us better right now? It's, does this buy us time? Or does this lock us in even deeper? Right. Experience wins games if you value what the veterans bring to this team. One detail that keeps coming up is how the development of younger pieces was handled over the last couple seasons. There's a sense that opportunities were missed. Not in a dramatic way, but enough to where now, when they need those players to step into bigger roles, the readiness isn't fully there. And in a roster this expensive, you can't afford gaps like that. At the same time, there's hesitation about going all in on a full reset, because once you take that step, there's no easy way back. And with Curry still playing like this, walking away from contention, even partial contention, feels like something the organization isn't fully ready to accept. If you follow the Warriors and don't want to miss the next big story around Curry and this franchise, make sure to subscribe right now. Here's where things get even more interesting. There are teams quietly monitoring Golden State's situation, waiting to see if any real cracks appear, not just for players, but for direction. Because the moment a franchise signals uncertainty, the market reacts fast. And that's why this next stretch matters more than people realize. Every decision, every rumor, every small move, it's all being tracked across the league. If you're following this closely, now is the moment to stay ahead of everything that's about to unfold. Hit subscribe right now, because what's coming next isn't speculation, it's movement. And when it starts, it's going to move fast. And you're going to want the full picture before everyone else catches on. Right, Curry deserves another run, if you believe the franchise should build one more contender around him. Because there's already a scenario being discussed involving a team from the East that's closer to making a drastic move than most people think. And if that domino falls, Golden State could suddenly find itself pulled into something much bigger than this current situation suggests. What makes this even more delicate is how quietly these situations can flip. One decision from another front office, one unexpected availability, and suddenly, a team that looked stuck has a narrow window to act. That's why Golden State isn't completely still right now. There are conversations happening, not loud ones, but the kind that test the edges of what's possible without committing too early. People around the league are paying attention to how the Warriors position themselves over the next few weeks. Not just in terms of moves, but in tone. Are they signaling patience, or are they hinting at urgency? That alone changes how other teams approach them in potential deals. There's also a layer of internal evaluation that goes deeper than fans usually see. It's not only about contracts and talent, it's about fit, durability, decision-making under pressure, the kind of things that only show up when a season gets uncomfortable. And right now, Golden State has enough of those moments on tape to force some honest conversations. Right, Golden State still has magic if you think this team can surprise the league again. Another factor that's starting to carry weight is how the coaching staff adapts to what's in front of them. Steve Kerr has built systems around movement, spacing, and trust, but when personnel shifts and physical limitations creep in, adjustments become necessary. The question is whether those adjustments can still produce winning stretches against younger, faster teams that are built very differently from the Warriors of the past. At the same time, there's no appetite inside the organization to drift into irrelevance. That word carries too much weight for a franchise that defined an era. So every option on the table is being measured not just by results, but by what it represents moving forward. Comment, Steph is living history if you believe we are watching one of the greatest players ever. And here's where the urgency starts to feel real. Because once the offseason officially opens, timelines compress fast. Opportunities don't wait, and hesitation can cost more than a bad move. That's why there's a growing sense that Golden State has to be ready before anything actually happens. If you want to stay ahead of all of this as it develops, this is the moment to lock in with the channel. Subscribe now, because when these situations start turning into real decisions, they don't come with warnings. And the difference between hearing it first and hearing it late changes how you understand everything that follows. Right, I still believe in the Warriors. If you trust this team can make fans dream again. Because there's already another layer to this story that hasn't fully come out yet, and it involves a shift in the market that could open a door nobody was even considering just a few days ago. And the part that hasn't fully surfaced yet is how quickly perception can change once one team makes a bold call. What looks blocked today can open overnight, and Golden State is watching closely for that exact kind of shift, not chasing noise, but ready if something real appears. There's a feeling building that this offseason won't be quiet, not dramatic on the surface, but meaningful underneath. The kind of moves that don't win headlines immediately, but reshape how this team competes next season. Comment, "The Bay still believes," if you trust that Golden State can rise again. If you want clear, early breakdowns on every move, every rumor that actually matters, and every decision shaping the future of this franchise, subscribe to the channel now. This is where you stay informed before the story fully unfolds.